Have you noticed that when your friend wins, your first instinct is to measure what you've lost?
Learn from Eastern ancient wisdom to see the modern world. Ancient Eastern mindsets.
You see a friend's post, promotion, book deal, dream job. Your thumb hovers. Before the congratulations, a split-second stomach drop. Panic. Why them, not me? You type "so happy for you" and feel the lie burn. Mencius, Aristotle, welcome. Mencius, what are we feeling in that moment before we paste the smile?
The ache of a blocked spring. Every person carries a sprout of compassion, the heart that cannot bear to see another suffer. But when comparison enters, that heart twists. You see your friend's success not as their joy, but as your failure made visible.
That sounds mechanical.
It is trained. When society measures every person by rank, by who wins the single seat, the heart learns to fear another's light. The sprout is still there, buried under numbers that tell you, their gain is your loss.
Before we call this sickness, ask what kind of friendship this is. A friendship of utility, where the other serves your advancement, will always produce this panic. If your friend is a mirror for your status, their success can only reflect your deficit.
So the panic is rational?
Rational inside a broken frame, but if friendship aims at shared growth in virtue, their achievement is not subtraction. It is evidence that excellence is possible. The question is not why you panic, but what you have reduced your friend to.
He is right about the frame, but too calm about the cost. When a person is trained from childhood to see life as a contest for scarce worth, the panic is not a logic error. It is a wound. You do not argue a wound into healing. You must first acknowledge that the person hurting has been taught to hurt.
I don't like that answer. It lets me off the hook.
No, it puts you on a different hook. You are not free to simply choose better feelings. But you are responsible for asking, who taught me that my friend's joy is a threat? And what am I doing today that keeps teaching me the same lesson?
Mencius, that's a heavy diagnosis. But if the panic is a wound, what exactly gets blocked?
The sprout of compassion, the heart that cannot bear to see another suffer. When a friend succeeds, that sprout should stir with joy. But trained to see life as a contest for scarce worth, you feel their gain as your loss, because the world teaches there is only one seat.
What if the blockage also comes from within a soul not yet cultivated in virtue? A friend's success can mirror our own lack.
I don't deny inner work, but you separate the soul from its soil. When a child is raised where only first place is rewarded, envy is learned survival, not private failure. You can't prune branches and ignore poisoned ground.
What does that poisoned ground look like today?
Your meritocracy is a ranking machine: exams, reviews, numbers that define worth. Another's promotion becomes evidence you've been measured and found less. The heart learns dread before celebration.
Even in a just polis, a disordered soul resents excellence. True friendship requires commitment to virtue.
But that commitment starves when the system punishes virtue. You ask people to be good, while survival rules reward the opposite. That's not cultivation. It's setting them up to fail. The wound is the shame of never being enough, taught before it's chosen.
So the cost is learning to hate what should inspire us.
Yes. And a society of such hearts cannot hold. When another's light is a threat, darkness grows from exhaustion. not evil. The sprout of compassion is the smallest, most precious fire of civilization. Let it be smothered long enough, and you'll wonder why the world feels so cold.
Mencius, you speak of a heart twisted by scarcity. But let us test the ground of friendship itself. In my study I found three kinds: those for utility, those for pleasure, and those for virtue. Only the last is complete. When a friend succeeds, a friend of utility calculates what is lost. A friend of pleasure fears the loss of ease. But a friend of virtue sees the success as a shared good, because both souls are oriented toward what is noble.
Your taxonomy is sharp, but it misses the root. The heart does not first choose a category of friendship and then feel. It first feels or fails to feel. If the sprout of compassion is blocked, even a virtuous friendship becomes a performance. You ask people to be friends of virtue, but if the soil of their heart is poisoned by a system that rewards only the first, how can that seed grow?
I do not ignore the soil, but a soul can cultivate itself through habit. We become just by doing just acts. If a person practices rejoicing in another's good, the feeling can follow. You place too much weight on the initial sprout, and not enough on the repeated action that shapes character.
But Aristotle, what if the habit itself is punished? Imagine a workplace where praising a colleague's promotion marks you as unambitious. Practicing joy could cost you your next raise.
Then the city is corrupt. And in a corrupt city, even a virtuous person struggles. But that does not make the virtue false. It makes the city the problem. We must distinguish between the health of the soul and the health of the polis.
And yet you cannot separate them so cleanly. A corrupt polis does not just make virtue hard, it teaches the heart to call evil good. When survival demands envy, the habit you praise becomes a habit of self-betrayal. The wound is not just in the city or the soul alone. It is in the place where they meet.
So the cost is a double bind. Practice virtue and lose your place, or survive and lose your soul. Is there a third way?
The third way begins with a small, fierce honesty. Name the wound. Admit that you have been taught to fear your friend's light. That admission is not weakness. It is the first act of the sprout, pushing through poisoned soil. From there, one can begin to choose small acts of celebration, even when the system does not reward them.
So, habit is your answer, Aristotle. But let me make this harder. It is Satzamen Nilyakumenda Kolme A.M. You are scrolling in bed, half asleep. You see the post. Your friend got the promotion. Your stomach drops before your mind can even form a thought. What does your philosophy do with that first half second?
That is the untrained soul. The virtuous person also feels the initial pang, but it is quickly ordered by reason. Habit does not erase the first movement. It shortens its reign.
You describe a well-ordered soul, but I see a heart that has learned to fear. That stomach drop is not untrained sensation. It is a sprout of shame, twisted. It knows this joy should be shared, but it has been taught that another's light is your shadow. The body speaks before the mind can lie.
So the body is both traitor and truth-teller. But, Mencius, if the body already knows the wound, what is the first move, not in theory, but tomorrow morning?
Pause before you scroll past. Not to force a smile. To name the drop. Say, this is the shape of a system in my stomach. That recognition begins shame's proper work. Not to bury you, but to point at what has been bent.
And then, perhaps, a different choice. A sincere message, a word of praise spoken aloud. These repetitions build a new disposition. But I must ask Mencius, if the system punishes this, how long can the sprout survive without structural change?
A pause. You press where I am weakest. I have seen kingdoms where the soil was salted. The sprout cannot grow alone forever. But I have also seen a single shoot break stone. The small act does not guarantee victory. It guarantees that you have not agreed to your own corruption. That is the first condition for any larger change.
So the practice is not a cure. It is a refusal to let the system have the last word about who you are. Tomorrow morning, you name the drop, you send the message. And if it costs you, what then?
Then you know the price of your humanity. And you decide each time whether you will pay it. That is not a solution. It is a life.
But, Mencius, what if the success is not just luck or effort? What if it's built on something you cannot bless? A friend who got ahead by stepping on others, by using connections that shut you out. Do you still owe them a sincere congratulations?
A long pause. You have brought me to the hardest border of my thought. I must not lie to you. There is a kind of gain that should not be celebrated. The stomach drop you feel, it is not pure envy. It can be your sense of shame, your righteousness, recoiling from what is crooked. To force a smile, then, is not virtue. It is self-mutilation.
But here we must be precise. For me, the question is not only about the gain, but about the friend. If the success is truly unjust, the friendship itself is damaged. A friendship based on virtue cannot survive if one party has abandoned virtue. Your unease is a signal that the common ground is cracking.
So the panic is not a failure of friendship. It is the friendship already failing, and the body knowing it first.
Yes. And that is a terrible knowledge. I have seen men cling to the name of friendship while the substance was already gone. They call it loyalty, but it is fear of being alone. I would say, do not bless the crooked gain, but do not pretend the wound is not there. Name it. This success was built on harm. Then decide if the friendship can survive truth.
And if it cannot, then the virtuous act is not to celebrate, but to mourn. To mourn a friend who chose a path you cannot walk with them. That grief is more honest than a hollow toast.
That is a harder answer than I wanted. I wanted a technique to feel better. You are giving me a reason to grieve.
I know. But grief that sees clearly is better than a lie that feels warm. The first step to recovering the ability to truly celebrate others is to stop celebrating what should not be celebrated. Only then can your joy for the genuinely good be clean.
You've both taken me somewhere harder than I expected. But I promised our audience 3 uncomfortable practices. So here they are, from easiest to hardest. 1. The next time a friend tells you good news, before you react, notice your body. Do you feel a drop in your stomach? A tightness in your chest? Don't judge it. Just name it. There it is. That's the first practice. 2, ask yourself one question. Is this success built on something I can honestly celebrate? Not should I be happy for them, but can I, without lying to myself? If the answer is no, don't force a smile. Silence is not betrayal. False celebration is. 3, if the success is clean, say something specific. Not, congratulations. Say, I saw how hard you worked for this, or I know what you gave up to get here. Make your joy a mirror of their effort. That's the hardest one because it asks you to have been paying attention all along. Start tomorrow. See you next time.